Hi everyone, it's Mark here again. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network. We're inches away from 100,000 members in our main group. That's probably going to happen this week, which is very exciting. But this is the best bit of the job for me. This is where I get to introduce you to one of our full members. And I'm very grateful that Scott Marshall has joined me today. Scott, thank you so much for being one of our full members and for joining me for this interview today.
Pleasure. Nice to be here, Mark.
So tell us about
BCVR.
yes, tell us
So,
about BCVR.
so BCVR Immersive is a creative studio and production company, and we work in the XR and immersive experiential space, creating projects for art installations or events, and also branded augmented reality and sort of virtual reality content, as well as some educational projects as well.
Great. And where are you based?
We're based in London, in Soho, so very central. But we also work across in the States quite a lot, so we used to have a satellite studio there as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, let's have a look and dive in, shall we? Literally
Absolutely.
dive in, because
Absolutely.
this is a swimming pool. So I'm going to share my screen so you can tell us a little bit more about the work. And this one in particular was for the Commonwealth Games in 2022. So let me share my screen. There we go. So everyone can see. Wherever this appears, there'll be links to all of this. So tell us about this one. What was Fluito?
So Fluito was a project we worked in collaboration with the artist Georgia Tucker and the Commonwealth Games or Commonwealth Institute. And this was an installation that was part of the Birmingham Games and the festival that they had, a sort of arts festival around the games in the Birmingham area. So we created a theme about water and about kind of the environment, but also engaged the swimmers, Commonwealth Games swimmers, who were also going to be featured in the games. So this was an installation that came about where we created a 3D cube inside a darkened exterior environment. So we actually had to build the building scaffolding in the park. And then inside we had projectors mapping the swimmers who were swimming around the cube as one single image in slow motion. So this meant that from our point of view, BCBR, we basically produced and were the production company for filming. So we hired the crew, we arranged the location, we filmed at the Birmingham University, so their Olympic swimming pool they have there. And then we mastered and created the images, graded and post-production. We also created the slow motion idea, as well as completing spatial sound for the production as well. And inside the cube, there was a second sort of underwater kind of image and graphic as well. So it was quite an exciting project to work on.
Brilliant. And there it is.
So yeah, that's it there. That's Georgia inside the inner cube there. So there was a little sort of slit there. So you watch the swimmers swim around that outer cube, and then you would go inside the middle cube, and there would be like another underwater kind of projection of sort of like a shimmering kind of underwater feel with some litter and things to give a sort of environmental idea about saving, the planet and thinking about our water consumption and those kind of ideas as well. We also built like an augmented reality companion version, which is what you'll get if you scan that QR code there. And that will show you like a sort of a web sort of mini version of it on your phone of the cube floating in space around your environment, and you can go inside the cube and you can hear all the audio that you would have heard during the experience if you were there in person.
Brilliant. I'm going to play this. I might mute my. I'm not sure. It's got sound as well, just for a bit of
sound. Yes.
Yeah. Love it. I think it's great.
Yeah, it's very cool, and it was one of the things really interesting as well that we did was we slowed down the images. There was we experimented with a few different things of running it at full speed, slow speed, and then we realized at full speed it would probably be a little bit too like over, you know, kind of over, like kind of a little bit too much for people. But we slowed it down and we redid all the sound as well. So the sound actually pans around the cube as the swimmer goes round. So it's like got 360 sound there as well. And I composed the drone for it as well, and some of the other music as well. So did that as well as part of the production.
Well, it's fantastic. So wherever this appears, there'll be links to more of this, which is great.
Great, lovely.
Thank you for showing us that. That's great. Now we're going to have a bit of fun now. And I'm going to create your fantasy cultural year from the answers to 10 easy questions.
Okay.
There are no wrong answers. Okay.
Sure.
I have a magic wand and a time machine at my disposal. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I need to place you somewhere in the world. So I'm going to do that by asking you, what's your favorite building?
My favorite building is probably the Barbican, I think. Like I'm very much into that brutalist kind of sort of architecture, and I love the style of a lot of the interiors there.
Brilliant. Excellent. So I'd like you to imagine, I know the Barbican really well because I studied at the Guildhall.
Amazing.
Which is there. So
door, isn't it? Yes.
Our practice rooms would look out over the lake.
Seen them. Yeah, they look amazing.
So you're on the terrace at the Barbican Centre, okay, enjoying the brutalist architecture of Lonsdale Tower, is it, or something?
I think so, yes.
Lauderdale Tower, yeah. And it's sunny, 6 o'clock, you're going to go to a show, and there is a drink by your side. What would I find there?
The drink would probably be a espresso martini, let's say.
Espresso martini, love it. And there's a book on your left. What would I find?
The book would be, now that's a good question. The book would probably be maybe Tolkien the Hobbit, something like that. Very into his.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm a big Tolkien fan. We'll have to have a trivia off.
That would be good. Yes, you'd be.
Okay, right. You see, this is I love about this because that's a conversational detour that wouldn't have happened. What was the name of the second book of the Lord of the Rings?
Oh, that's a good question. I can't think off the top of my head. Was it Return of the Ring, or was it yes, you have to remind me.
It was The Two Towers.
That's right, The Two Towers, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah. Chuck one back at me if you wish. Tolkien Triv.
What was the name of his book after the Lord of the Rings, after that trilogy?
I think it was The Silmarillion.
That's right, I think so, yes, as well. Yes, I think so, yes.
Ironically, it goes back, it's a prequel, isn't it?
Yes, that's right. But yes, exactly, it is. Yes. I'm wondering whether they'll ever make that. There's never really, yes, it's interesting whether they'll make a film of that one.
I think it's unlikely. I think there's some things happening that Peter Jackson's working on. I'm not sure, but the numbers are staggering. It cost $300 million to make all three movies in one go.
Yes.
And the first one took 600 million at the box office alone.
Yes.
And that wasn't the one that won the Oscars. So
yeah. Did you watch the TV series recently? Interesting. It's very, very divided people, I think, that one.
Which one? The
Rings of Power one that was.
Oh yes, I've tried to, but I think what people who've read the book perhaps several times over the last 20, 30 years, you identify with the characters in the main story so much, that it's very difficult to allow others into that environment. And it's so I haven't really got into it.
I sort of managed to get to the end of season 1, but I couldn't really do season 2. It started to go off in a tangent for me that wasn't, I don't know, it didn't really sit.
I think Game of Thrones suffered the same problem.
I think so, well. Yes.
So anyway, right. Okay, now you're feeling quite pleased with yourself sitting there with an espresso martini and the Hobbit next to you, because you've just come from a really successful meeting in the Barbican Centre with a wealthy city-based family foundation, okay, who like to invest in research in the arts. They've asked you if you would take a year's sabbatical from your business, and they will make sure that your business is run in your absence. They're going to pay you an awful lot of money to do this, and it's first class all the way, no expense spared. They'd like you to do a global tour to establish where VR and immersive art is flourishing and where it's not flourishing, and what the emerging trends might be. There's a book deal in it. There's a TED talk in it. There's a global university lecture tour. And there is a series of TV interviews about what you found out about immersive art. My first question is, would you like to do that?
Sound very exciting. Yes, I think that could be fun. Yes. That's good.
And then the second question is, where would you like to start? In what city and what country would you start? You can go anywhere you like.
That's a good question. I think there's Amsterdam has got a very good cultural immersive kind of. They've got Next, and they've got a few other things going on at the moment, which is very forthright. Hamburg as well, but let's stick with Amsterdam, I guess.
Amsterdam. Okay, you're on the plane. Okay, you turned left on the plane because you're traveling first class. The steward brings you an espresso martini and a note from the family foundation back in the city. They'd like there's a condition. You have to limit your musical listening to one very specific genre of music for 12 months to the exclusion of all else. What would you choose?
I would say it would have to be some sort of minimalist electronic or something like that. Almost ambisonic.
Ambisonic, so an ambient minimalist electronic. Okay, yes. That's yours. Excellent. Now you get to Amsterdam, and a group of students meet you with your name on a board at the airport. Schiphol, isn't it? I think.
Yes.
And they say, right, we're going to take you to your apartment. It's a beautiful loft apartment overlooking a canal. And they say, right, settle in, unpack, make yourself comfortable, relax. We're going to come back in a few hours and take you to a dance performance and then out to dinner. Now, this is where the magic wand and the time machine come in, because I can put on that stage any dance performance you want. It can be any dancer, living or not, any dance group, any dance style. What dance-based performance would you enjoy watching in those circumstances?
Interesting. Probably quite interesting. It's probably like ballet, I think. More traditionalist than modern dance. I mean, I do like modern dance, but I can't say I really know any modern dancers. It's not an area I'm too kind of informed on. But I quite like the idea of something traditional, but mixing that traditional perhaps with different styles of music.
Okay, we'll give you a double header then. We'll have a ballet Rambert doing something contemporary in the first half.
Yeah.
And then the Dutch Royal Ballet, if there is such a thing.
Nice.
Doing Coppelia. There
cool.
we go. There.
Great.
Now, Amsterdam has restaurants that cover cuisine from all over the world. What would be your first choice?
I would probably go for something maybe like a schnitzel or some sort of Austrian dish, perhaps. Like that.
Okay, going Austrian. Okay, excellent. Now, the next day is Saturday, and that's sport day in Amsterdam. We're going to take you to a sporting event. You can take part if you wish, or you can spectate. What sport would you like to go and watch? You can have anything you like.
I would say it would be Formula One.
Formula One.
Amsterdam. Yes.
The Amsterdam Grand Prix. We'll have to do it.
Grand Prix. That could be good one.
We'll have to do it on boats.
Yes, that would be interesting. And well, maybe it could be a boat formula race.
Yeah, that's going to have some crashes in it.
Yeah, quite possibly in the canals. Yes.
Excellent. Love that. Now, in Amsterdam, there is a new, this will be an interesting one for you. There is a new immersive VR digital gallery in which you can put on a set of VR headset and step into the work of a visual artist. It's three-dimensional, 360 degrees, animated if necessary, and you get to walk around in that work of art. Whose art would you like to step into in that way?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Off the top of my head, let's think. I mean, he's a musician, but he also does electronic visual art as well. Max Cooper. I really like his visual work. It's very interesting. So he does performances where he does VJs as well as does electronic music, but he mixes all the visual art to it as well. It's very cool.
Let me show everybody so that we can check that I've got the right person. Is this him?
Yes.
Okay. So, and this is the kind of work, is it?
Yeah, this is kind of the work. So like he'll live mix the visuals together, as well as the audio as well. So it's kind of like live mix. He project, and that's exactly a good image actually, because he projects. He has like a screen, like a see-through sort of kind of like screen where he projects onto that in front of him. So the
Right.
projections are kind of like, and they're all timed to the music as well. So he has a he studied science and physics. So
Hmm.
the art is kind of timed and connected with all the physics of the music as well, which is very cool.
Wow, that looks great. Very
Yes, really, really, really. I recommend. I mean, the music is very hard electronic at times, but I recommend if you can going to see some of his performances because they're pretty amazing.
Yeah, looks great. Excellent. Okay, so that's Max Cooper, everyone. You can go and dig around and find more info. Excellent. Okay. Now, I'm with you for a week. We're doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, something artistic or cultural every day. We're going to go to a pop or rock concert on Monday,
Mm-hmm.
going to a theatre play on Tuesday. We're going to a West End or Broadway musical on Wednesday. We're going to the opera on Thursday, and we're going to the movies on Friday. Now, you may or may not have a preference in each of those categories, so by all means, throw it back at me. But for the pop and rock concert, we can use our time machine.
Okay, we can
Um,
go back in time, or yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
So, what show would you want to go and see?
Interesting. I'm trying to think. Now, I probably well, it's two pronged. I mean, it would have been Oasis, but I'm going to see Oasis now, so that would have been that one. Possibly Crowded House, maybe like rock pop. I never saw Crowded House. I really liked them back in the day. They're kind of still together, I think, are they? I'm not sure. Maybe not, but yeah, let's go with that.
Crowded House. Excellent. That'll be good. What about a theatre play? Do you have a favorite theatre play?
I don't really have a favorite play. I'm going to see Doctor Strangelove next week, so I guess I would have that in there because that's I'm a very big fan of Kubrick and I'm a big fan of Steve Coogan. So, and obviously, the writer whose name escapes me right now. But yes, so let's say that.
Excellent. Okay, Stanley Kubrick. What was it again? The Doctor Strangelove. There we go. Yeah. Excellent. Are you a musical fan, a musical theatre fan?
Not hugely, but I've seen a few over the years. Not that many, but let's think. What's the favorite musical I've ever seen? Maybe we'll say West Side Story.
Nice. Well, we've got the time machine, so
studied that in music. So yeah.
we've got the time machine. So I'm going to whisk you back to its first performance. There we go. And what about an opera?
Maybe Faust. The thingy circle? Is that Faust? Is it? What's the rising circle or the raising circle? I can't remember. That's one I've seen at the Opera House years ago.
Right. I think it's Gounod.
That might be Gounod. Yes.
Gounod's Faust.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. And a movie. Big screen, IMAX.
I mean, that's hard because a lot of good choices. I would say IMAX, probably Gravity, let's say.
Oh, yeah.
I saw that in IMAX. So.
Yeah, that's great. Excellent. Now we're nearly there. It's Hero Day now. I'm going to book a table in a lovely restaurant in Amsterdam for a leisurely 2-hour lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And you can invite any single person you like, and they will come, living or not, famous or otherwise. Who would you choose to have lunch with?
Elon Musk.
Oh, there we go. If he can spare the time now.
Well, of course. I mean, but you said he comes. So.
Yeah, he's there now. Um, with a slight twist to that question, who do you think Elon Musk would invite?
Probably Donald Trump.
Yeah, probably would now.
Probably would.
Yeah.
If it wasn't that, he would probably invite like Tim Peake, let's say Tim Peake.
Oh yeah, yeah. Or Nikola Tesla even.
Or Nikola Tesla. Yes, absolutely. Yes, exactly. Yes, and go back in time. Exactly.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, there you go. That's your immersion into
Amazing.
your year. You go on to produce some wonderful content about the hotspots for immersive art around the world, and you pick up on trends, and the book deal's done. A lecture tour is arranged.
Perfect.
TED Talk is booked in. Um, that's great. Now you're on the way home
Mhm.
after all of this, and a little note turns up from the steward who's got an espresso martini for you again.
Lovely.
The limitation to listening to ambient electronica has been lifted. So what's the first piece of music you'd want to listen to that isn't in that genre, that you hadn't heard for 12 months?
Oh, okay, that's an interesting one. Probably say Max Richter. I'm a big fan of him. And I can't remember, it's like what the track is now. Ambience Evolving or something, one of those ones.
Okay.
But yes, he's great. I like him a lot. Like that. I'm very much a big fan of that kind of classical soundtrack kind of crossover. Is always very popular.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, there you go. That's your year done.
Amazing. It sounds like a great year.
It does, isn't it? I've got another little rapid fire question series for you, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course.
This is the this or that game. Okay. I'm
Mhm.
going to give you two options. You have to choose one.
Okay.
Okay. Ready?
I'm ready.
Still or sparkling?
Still.
Mac or PC?
PC.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Radio or television?
Television.
Peas or Brussels sprouts?
Brussels sprouts.
Yes. Call them or text them?
Text them.
Window seat or aisle seat?
Window seat.
Milk or dark chocolate?
Oh, interesting one. Dark chocolate.
Car or motorcycle?
Motorcycle.
Yes. Thunderbirds or Power Rangers?
Thunderbirds.
Boiled egg or fried egg?
Fried egg.
Comedy or horror?
Comedy.
Concert hall or sports stadium?
Concert hall.
Cat or dog?
Cat.
Test the water or dive in at the deep end?
Dive in at the deep end.
That's orange juice, bits or no bits?
No bits.
An hour in a library or a museum?
Museum.
Beethoven or Mozart?
Beethoven.
Shower or bath?
Shower.
Cooking or being cooked for?
Being cooked for.
Sand or snow?
Snow.
Reggae or salsa?
Salsa.
Indoors or outdoors?
Outdoors.
Android or iPhone?
iPhone.
Start immediately or wait until the last minute?
Start immediately.
We're so unlike in that respect. Science or history?
Science.
New York or LA?
Oh, that's LA.
Early riser or night owl?
Early riser.
Messy desk or tidy desk?
Tidy desk.
Red or white wine?
Red wine.
Batman or Superman?
Batman.
Marvel or DC?
DC.
Numbers or words?
Words.
Mild or spicy?
Oh, interesting. Spicy, I think. Yeah.
Gold or silver?
Gold.
Football or rugby?
Football.
And finally, see the future or change the past?
see the future?
There we go.
Yeah, very great questions. Great questions. Very good.
Excellent. I have to change them up a bit every
Yeah.
time I do this. So
That's good.
Scott, thank you so much for doing that.
Thanks, Mark.
Wherever this appears, there'll be links to you and your work and examples of it, which is
Amazing.
going to be great. And barcodes, not barcodes, QR codes that people can scan. And thank you once again for being one of our full members. It's very much appreciated.
Pleasure. No, thanks, Mark. It's great. Thanks for doing this, and thanks for the community is great as well. You know, I will definitely get myself more posting. I think definitely in the next few weeks as well.
Well, please do tag me if you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And
yes,
I will make I'm going to China to do a keynote presentation and got some clients in Taiwan. So I'm going out there at the end of this month, which is why I can't make the next meetup. But I'll make sure I make the January one.
Okay, excellent.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks again, Scott.
Speak to you soon. Thanks.